In this video, I'll show you how you can automate your entire cold email campaign so you can start sending hyper-personalized emails like this one without needing to pay for an expensive marketing agency or any cold email marketing tools. Now, the workflow that I'm about to share with you built us a sales pipeline of over $117,000 within just 2 months of opening our agency. And I know of multiple other AI companies that are selling similar solutions for $20,000 or more. And in this video, I'm going to be giving you access to all of that for completely free. So let's not waste any more time and get right into it. Now, just before I take you through the workflow and help you with setting it up, I want to tell you why this automation works. And the key phrase here is hyper-personalization at scale. Alex Hormozi built and sold a $46 million company on the back of cold email marketing, and he says that personalization will make or break your cold email. There's also a lot of research out there from HubSpot and the likes of that suggests you can almost 10x your open and reply rate simply by personalizing the emails. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, well, we get it. So what actually is personalization? So to explain the concept of personalization, let's take a closer look at this diagram. So over here, we've got a stickman on the left, and we've got 5 stickman on the right. Now, let's say if this person on the left wanted to reach out to all of the 5 people on the right with a cold email, there's really 2 ways he can do that. So the first thing he can do is he can send one email that goes collectively to every single person. Now, we call those types of emails a one-to-many email, meaning that one person sends that email to many other people. Now, this is the opposite of personalization. This is really bad. Research has proven that if the person on the left actually reaches out to each of these people with a different personalized email, then the likelihood of those people replying to him is 5 to 10x more. And that is the concept of personalization, meaning that the emails that you send out are hyper-personalized to each person, making it feel like you sent them all an individual email each. And we call this a one-to-one communication, meaning that one person is sending an email to one person. Now, to explore this concept, let's take a closer look at a cold email that I received about 4 days ago. So as you can see inside the CC of this email, you can see that this person has sent this email to multiple people. So already I know that this is a one-to-many email. It's not personalized. And if we take a closer look at the actual email body, you can also see that there's nothing there mentioning my name or any reason why this email has been sent specifically to me. It says, hey, I'll keep this simple. I built XYZ. I did this. I want to do this. I want to do that. All about himself, nothing about me, no hyper-personalization. Now, this is a really, really bad cold email. Now, let's take a closer look at another cold email I received about 3 days ago. So in this one, they say, hey, Kia Gesem. So they've put my name and my surname at the start of the email, which is some level of personalization. And then they say, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out one last time to see if you'd be interested in XYZ. And basically what they're doing obviously here is they're trying to follow up on selling me a web app development collaboration service. So this email in practice is a lot better than the previous email received because there is a certain level of personalization there by mentioning my name. So at least I know that they kind of know who they were trying to send it to. And they didn't just randomly select 10,000 people and send it to everyone. Now, the reality is about 5-10 years ago, these somewhat personalized emails with your name and your company name and your country or location embedded as variables inside the emails would actually increase conversion rate. But with the popularization of cold email tools like Instantly and MailChimp and the sorts of, this level of personalization has become accessible to almost everyone. So in practice, they don't really work that well anymore because everyone kind of sounds the same. And so with that being said, cold email marketers today tell you that if you want to send a personalized email that would actually get a response back, it has to be hyper-personalized to that person. And hyper-personalization means that you need to research that person online and from their social media accounts so you have enough information about them to actually send them a hyper-personalized email. Now let's take a look at an example of a hyper-personalized email. So as you can see in this email, it says, hey Kia, your recent LinkedIn post about the next 1,000 years totally blew my mind. It was equal parts exciting and terrifying. So if we take a look at my actual LinkedIn account, you can see that I did post a LinkedIn post about the next 1,000 years being wild, and what they're doing is that they're referring to that LinkedIn post. So just by doing that, I now know that these people have me on LinkedIn and I feel a personal connection with them. Or in other words, I think that they actually know me. So this feels like a one-to-one communication. So to conceptualize this, think of when you're on TikTok. You're literally just going on your phone and you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and you're going through maybe 100 posts in 10 minutes. The post that you actually end up watching is the post that grabs your attention within the first 2 or 3 seconds. And that's the hook of that post. Same scenario for emails. People are just going to open up your email and read the first 1 or 2 lines and see whether it's worth for them to actually read the rest. And that's why by hyper-personalizing the first few lines, you hook and grab their attention so they're intrigued to actually read the rest and see what you're talking about. But as you can imagine, achieving this level of hyper-personalization is very difficult in practice because it will require for you to go and research that person on LinkedIn, on all their social media accounts, and then also go and research them online to find out any news about them so you have enough information that you can make a decision based off to figure out how you're going to hyper-personalize that email. So that research component of the hyper-personalization is extremely time intensive. And then you have to use that research to come up with a hyper-personalized email to actually send them. So just doing a little bit of mathematics here, let's say you're really good at sending out hyper-personalized emails and researching people. Let's say it only takes you 10 minutes to research that person online and make 3 hyper-personalized emails that you can send in a sequence. So if it takes you 10 minutes to send out emails to one person, let's say if you wanted to send out 1,000 emails within a month, that will take you 10,000 minutes to actually send those emails. Now, 10,000 minutes divided by 60 minutes in an hour, that would take you about 167 hours for you to send out emails to those 10,000 people. Now, 167 hours divided by 40 hours per working week, that's give or take 4 weeks of your time in order to send out those 10 emails. So let's say if you had a full-time employee working 40 hours a week, it will take them 4 weeks or an entire month to send out emails to 1,000 cold leads. Now, with the power of AI and hyper-personalization at scale, we can do this in literally 5 minutes and a fraction of the cost of hiring real employees. So I hope by now you guys can clearly see why this automation is super powerful. But if I haven't convinced you enough, let's take a look at the other features of this automation. So in addition to achieving hyper-personalization at scale, the automation that I'm about to share with you has a bunch of other features that are super important for deliverability and email optimization. The first one of those is a unsubscribe link that allows people to unsubscribe or opt out from receiving further cold emails. This is really important for email deliverability. Now, the second additional feature of the automation is reply monitoring. So what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be sending out multiple emails. So let's say this is the first email, second email, and third email. And after we've sent the first email, if they've already replied to us, it's likely that we're now engaging in a conversation with them back and forth. And so there's no need to send the second scheduled email. So what the system does is that it checks if they've replied here, and then it checks if they've replied here, so that if they have replied, it wouldn't continue with the rest of the sequence. Now, the third feature of the automation is email rotation. Now, I remember sometime last year, we were working with a client that was sending a ton of cold emails out every single day. I think about 1,500 cold emails every single day. And they had no idea that they should be rotating their emails, so they were sending all of their emails from one single inbox. And in practice, this is actually really, really bad. And if you take a look at their statistics, this was clearly reflected because their spam rate was super, super high. Now, if you guys follow top email marketing coaches like Lead Gen J, they tell you that you should be sending a maximum of 50 emails per inbox per day. But with that being said, you still want to be able to send out multiple emails, more than 50, of course, a day. So in order for you to be able to send out more than 50 emails per day, what you should be doing is you should be having multiple email addresses that you will rotate when you send out these emails. So the idea is if you want to send out 150 emails per day, instead of sending all of these 150 emails in one single email address A, you want to be sending this 150 emails in 3 different email addresses. So you want to send 50 with email address A, 50 with email address B, and 50 with email address C. And the automation that I'm about to share with you will allow you to do exactly that by dividing the emails that are being sent across the different email addresses that you're using. Now, the fourth feature of the automation is really important if you're someone like us that has clients all around the globe, some in Europe, some in Australia, some in America with completely different time zones. Because let's say if you wanted to send out 50 emails per day to 50 people in different time zones, obviously some people are going to be asleep and some people are going to be at work when they receive that email. And if you send an email to someone in the middle of the night 8 hours before they actually get into office, it's likely that by the time they do get into office, the email that you sent them is going to be at the very bottom of the inbox, so they're not even going to actually see it in order to open it and read it. And what we've done inside this automation is that we've built out the system in a way that it will divide the people that you want to send the emails to by the time zones that they're in. So it sends them emails in working office hours so that you know that when you send that email, they're going to see it straight away, read it straight away, and reply to you straight away. And we also have a secret feature that you're going to have to stay tuned, and I'll share with you later. Now, as you guys can see over here, this automation uses about 12 or 13 different workflows that are going to work together in order to automate your cold email campaign. But don't worry, because a lot of them are going to be almost the same and they're going to have a lot of overlaps between them. And as I promised, I'm going to show you guys exactly how to set everything up for yourself. So just before we get into demoing everything and walking you guys through setting this up for yourself step by step, let me show you guys how you can download these workflows for completely free. So to download these workflows, all you have to do is click on the link in the description down below, which will take you to my free Skool community. Inside the community, all you have to do is go to the YouTube resources section and look for the post that has the same title as this video. Once you find that post, you want to click on it, and then you can see that there is a video and also a bunch of resources to the side of it. You want to go through those resources, and the ones that say JSON or look like this are going to be the workflows. So you want to click on them, and then you want to download them. And then once you've downloaded them, you want to open up a new workflow inside your n8n account. You want to click on these 3 buttons at the very top and click on import from file. And then you just want to import the file that you downloaded into your n8n account. And then the workflow is going to magically appear. And so that by itself should take you 90% of the way there. The rest of what you have to do is listen along with the video, and I'll explain exactly how you can fine tune and set things up to work perfectly for yourself. Now, I hope to also see you guys inside the free Skool community. Inside the community, we have tons of fun competitions, like we have a competition coming up in 34 hours. We have a ton of free resources. We also update you guys with AI news every couple of days. And also there's sections where you can ask questions if you guys have issues with tech problems, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. Now, as I said, the community is completely free and it's only out there to help you guys out with your automation journey. So I do hope to see you guys in there. Now, unlike what you guys would have probably imagined, the story of this automation doesn't start from cold emails themselves. It starts from a friend of mine called Lead Generation Joe. Now, Lead Gen Joe is an AI agent that I built that's capable of scraping and also researching leads by literally texting or sending voice commands to it on Telegram. Hey Lead Gen Joe, can you please find me a list of founders of marketing agencies in Sydney, Australia, London, United Kingdom, and New York, United States? So we'll send that voice message through, and just by running the workflow, Lead Gen Joe will then talk to the lead scraping tool, and it will go and scrape all of that information for us. And just like that, Joe responds with, done, I've added 341 new contacts for founders of marketing agencies in Sydney, London, and New York to the Google Sheet that you've assigned to Joe. And opening up the Google Sheet, you can see that we indeed do have founders of marketing agencies. And if we scroll to the bottom, you can see that it is 341 new contacts, just like Lead Gen Joe said. And the locations are New York, and there's also London, and there should be Sydney, Australia over here as well. So as you saw, literally by sending a voice message to Lead Gen Joe, we now have a list of 341 new contacts that we can reach out that match the exact criteria of the people that we wanted to target. Now, if you guys want to know how I built Lead Gen Joe, I literally made a video on this last week. I'll put the link in the description down below. All the templates are also going to be there, so you can literally download and import it into your workflow and set it up in a matter of maybe 45 minutes. So coming back to the workflow, as you can see, we have a whole bunch of leads now that we can target with our cold email outreach. There's also a bunch of columns that haven't yet been filled out. So then that takes us to the first workflow of our cold email automation. So I'm just going to run this while we talk. So in this automation, what's basically happening is the rows from the Google Sheet are being pulled in. I'll put a limiter here just because of the demo. I don't want to have to go through 341 items at once. So 3 of those are being chosen. What we're doing here is we're researching each lead based off their LinkedIn profile and also researching them on Google using Perplexity. So this is going to find all the information that's available about them publicly online. And this one is going to find out all the information from their main social media platform, which is going to be LinkedIn. And if you guys want, you can make this research component infinitely complex by adding more and more APIs that will research them on more and more platforms. Like for example, I have a node down here that I haven't used that I'm going to give you guys access to, which will also scrape their Trustpilot reviews to find all the reviews that were negative in the past couple of weeks. So if they've gotten any negative reviews online, it will grab those reviews and it'll put it inside the report so you can send cold emails that will say, hey, I know you guys got this negative review. This is how we can help you. Now, once these leads are being researched, what's happening is that information or that research is then being analyzed so it can extract information or insights that will help you send that cold email. So in the analysis section, there's really two things that are being extracted. The first one is hyper-personalization points, or points that you can mention inside the email that will make that email personalized. And the second thing that's being analyzed is the pain points that that prospect is likely facing. So you can talk to them about their pain points inside the email so that they have a reason to actually be intrigued to want to talk to you further. And then once that research has been analyzed and the insights have been extracted, those insights are going to be used to create 3 emails that's going to be sent to that person in a sequence. So imagine the first one on Monday, the next one on Wednesday, and the next one on Friday if they haven't replied yet. And then those emails are coming here and a bunch of things are being added to them, like the actual time zone that that person is based off the country that they live in, the actual send the email that's going to be sending that email to them, or basically the email address that we're using to send that email. And also an opt-out token is being created for them. So you can use that opt-out token so that they can opt out by clicking the unsubscribe link later on. And then all this information is being uploaded back into the Google Sheet. So coming back here, you guys can see that the top 3 people now have the other fields also filled out for them, except for the message ID, and we'll get to that one later. So the first thing that's happening is the analyze section is changing to yes, meaning that these contacts have been analyzed, whereas everyone else has not. And then there's a research report that's being uploaded, which is the output of the analysis node inside the previous workflow. And if we take a look at it, you can see that it has some personalization opportunities, and it also has some pain points and solutions, which is the 2 things that we were trying to assess based off the research that we found. And then you can see that we have an email body for each of the 3 emails that we're going to be sending, and also a subject for email number 1 and email number 3. Because email number 2 isn't going to actually be a whole new entire email. It's going to be a follow-up email that's going to be sent in the same thread as email number 1. And I'm going to show you guys how. Then we have the sender email, which, as I said, is going to be the email address that you're using to send out those emails. So I've defined kiagasm.dev and kia@comexa.ai, which is my 2 main emails, to be in here. And then you guys would have your own 3rd email as well. And then there's the time zones in which the country that they're located is defining. So T1 is for America. If we come back here, you can see that this person is in the US. And then T2 is for Europe. So these 2 people should be in London. So as you can see, London and London. And then we also have a bunch of other fields, which is just saying, has email 1 been sent? No. Has email 2 been sent? No. Has email 3 been sent? No. Has the person replied yet? No. The token for them opting out, and also have they opted out yet or not? And obviously they still haven't, so no. Now this brings us to our second workflow, which is actually sending off email number 1. And as you guys can see, next to email number 1, we have a T1, which is determining the time zone of the actual person that we're sending the email to. So to explain this, I'm going to have to explain to you guys how we've set up these workflows. So basically we have 3 time zones: time zone number 1, time zone number 2, and time zone number 3. As I said, time zone number 1 is for the US, time zone number 2 is for the UK, and time zone number 3 is for Australia. Now there is also 3 emails that has to be sent out for each of these time zones. So we have email number 1, email number 2, email number 3 for time zone 1, email number 1, email number 2, email number 3 for time zone 2, email number 1, email number 2, and email number 3 for time zone 3. So 3 emails for 3 different time zones. And then basically what we're doing with each of those emails is we're sending them out with a 2-day delay between them. So email number 1 is going to be sent in day 0, let's say Monday. And then email number 2 is going to be sent in day 2, which is Wednesday. And then email number 3 is going to be sent in day 3, which let's say is going to be Friday. So with that being said, what basically happens is we send email number 1 out, and then we send email number 2 out 2 days later, and we check to see if they actually replied or not. If they haven't, we send email number 2. And then email number 3, we also check to see if they've replied or not. And then we send email number 3. So with that being said, what we have to establish is 9 different workflows to send out these emails. First workflow for sending out email number 1 for time zone 1, second one for email number 1 for time zone 2, third one for email number 1 for time zone 3, then the same thing for the other emails for the other time zones. Now with that being said, you guys can make this infinitely complex if you wanted to. For example, what we had set up for ourselves was 2 separate batches. So this was only batch number 1, which happened on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We also had batch number 2, which happened on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And that way we were able to send out more emails within the same week by also adhering to the 50 email per inbox rule that we were trying to adhere to. But obviously doing that, you're gonna have to have 18 workflows. And for the sake of this demo, it would have been too complex. So I thought we'd keep it simple and would only have 9. But feel free to add more emails like email number 4, email number 5, email number 6, and so on, or even more batches as you please. It's generally consensus that you can either send out 3 emails, which is a good strategy, or you can send out about 6 to 8 emails, which is also a good strategy. But when you're sending out 3 emails and when you're sending out 6 to 8 emails, the content of those emails is going to be completely different. And that gets more into the technical sort of cold email strategies that I don't really want to get into today because I want to keep this as more of an automation tutorial and not a marketing 101 tutorial. But if you guys want to hear me talk more about cold email marketing strategies, feel free to put it down in the comments below and I'll make another video on this soon. So with that being said, this is the workflow for email number 1 for time zone 1. And if we take a look at the workflow for email number 1 for time zone 2, you can see that it looks almost identical to the other one because honestly, it is. The only difference is when you're actually importing the leads from the Google Sheet, you're checking to see whether email number 1 has been sent, yes or no. Obviously, if email number 1 has already been sent, you don't want to send it again. And you're also checking to see if the time zone is T1 or T2. And that's really the main difference. Aside from that, the only difference is the actual scheduling trigger is obviously going to be different because you want the automation for time zone 2 to run at a certain time of the day, whereas the automation for time zone 1 to run at another point of the day. And I'll show you guys exactly how you can set up those little nuances. But if we come back to this workflow and test that out, let's see what happens. We're going to run the workflow. And then as you can see, once that row gets pulled in, it has this sort of if statement that will separate the emails based off the email address that it's being sent from. So if it's being sent from kirgasem.dev@gmail.com, it's going up. If it's being sent from kia@chemexa.ai, it's being sent this way. And if it's being sent from the third email, which is your email at gmail.com, then it's being sent this way. And by doing that, what we're really doing is we're ensuring that the emails are being sent from the respective email addresses that was defined in the previous workflow, so we can ensure that the emails are going to be rotated evenly between the 3 email addresses. But we'll get to that in a moment as well. So once the email came in, it goes through a loop. It loops through, sends the emails each one by one using a Gmail node, and then it waits for 15 seconds in this instance, but in reality, it's probably better to have it for 5 minutes. But obviously, I didn't want to have to wait 5 minutes for a demo every single time an email was being sent. So you'd want to change that. And then that information comes back up. And inside the Google Sheet, the only things that will change is it will find the row by the LinkedIn URL, and then it will change the message ID. And also it will change the email sent from no to yes. And if we take a look up here, you can see that the first row was the one with time zone 1. Email sent is now yes. And also we have a message ID which refers to the message ID of the actual email that was sent. And if we take a closer look at the actual email that I sent, it says, "Hey Morgan, I noticed online that FWB Talent champions human connection as the core of influence marketing, not just influence itself. Your approach of representing creators who build genuine relationships resonated with me. Managing such a diverse roster from physicians who educate to entertainers who evoke emotion must create significant administrative overhead that pulls you away from focusing on those human connections. I've been working on solutions that automate these time-consuming processes. Would love to share my insights during a quick 15-minute call on Thursday. Should I book you in? And then kind regards, Kia." And we've also got the click here to unsubscribe button at the bottom. So as you guys can see, we have the personalization section at the start. We then have the pain point section after that. And then we have a call to action section where we're saying, "Hey, we can help you. Let's jump on a quick call so I can explain everything to you over a call." And then we also have the actual opt out link. And as you can see, on purpose, we've kept it very simple. We haven't added any crazy HTML stuff like bolding and that sort of stuff because that's much better for deliverability. And then as you can see in the subject line, it also has, I believe, their company's name to make it personalized. So FWB's human connection. It's meant to intrigue curiosity. So they click on the email and they actually read it more and more. So as you guys can see over here, in this instance, I've actually sent the email from myself to myself. And that's evident here. If we come back to the workflow, you can see that I've actually connected it to my own account and I'm actually sending it to my own account as well, because I obviously don't want to be sending out cold emails on a demo to people. I'm not sure if that's legal or if it's going to create issues. So I'm just sending all these emails to myself at this stage. But later on, you guys will obviously be changing this to the variable of their email address. And this would actually send out the emails to them as opposed to yourself. So now let's quickly demo the opt-out link. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click here to unsubscribe. And then what's going to happen is it's going to load for a second. And it's going to bring us to this page, which says your privacy is important to us. And then that's the logo for my company. And it's going to say you have successfully unsubscribed. So with that being said, they now know that they're no longer going to receive any emails from me, and it was super easy for them to do that with just a one click on the click here to unsubscribe button at the bottom of the actual email. And if we open up the Google Sheet and scroll all the way to the right, you can see that the T1 person, which was Morgan, has indeed opted out. So the opt-out changed from no to yes. And to do this, what we've done is we've set out an opt-out link workflow that will trigger a webhook every time someone clicks on an unsubscribe button, and then it will find the token that they have. It will match that token to the tokens inside the Google Sheet, and then it will remove them from my email list by changing the opt-out field from no to yes, and then it will respond to them via webhook, which will send them to this page, which will say, thank you so much. We're no longer going to reach out to you, so please don't sue us. That's the last time you're going to hear from us. Now, if I go to email number 2 for time zone 1, as you guys can see, if I run it, it will go to the Google Sheets node and then nothing will happen. And the reason for that is inside the Google Sheets node, we actually have a parameter that's saying the opted out column should have to be no if we're going to send out this email. So if they haven't opted out, we're sending this email. But if they have opted out, then obviously they're going to be filtered out and we're not going to be sending the email for them. And as I said in this case, because they have opted out, then they actually wouldn't be pulled into the Google Sheet. And so the automation will not run for them. Now, considering time zone number 1 is actually now eliminated because the only person we had in T1 has now opted out, I'm going to quickly run email number 1 for time zone 2 so we can analyze it for the rest of the demo. So now as you guys can see, email number 1 has been sent for time zone 2 and a message ID has been added for those emails. So if we take a look at one of the emails that was just sent across 1 minute ago, we can see that the subject line is Shopstars Automation Potential. Hey Chris, your 15-year entrepreneurial journey across tech and software verticals caught my attention on LinkedIn. Particularly impressive how Shopstar leverages behavioral psychology for consumer insights, yada, yada, yada. And then there's also another email that says Agency Easy's Automation Challenge, and it also has the hyper-personalized email with the pain point and also the call to action sent across to them. So again, these are all being sent from myself to myself because this is a demo, but in reality, you would have this sending to the actual lead. So now let's take a look at workflow number 2 for email number 2. As you can see, this workflow is a little bit more complex. I'm just going to quickly run it and then I will go over exactly what is happening. The leads get pulled in, and then depending on who the sender email actually is, it gets split across the 3 inboxes. So you can send it from the relevant sender email. And then once the email comes in, it goes through a loop where each lead one by one goes through a Gmail node, which checks whether there has been a reply from that person or not. So if there has been a reply from that person, then what will happen is they will be filtered out. And inside the Google Sheet, we will change the replied parameter to yes as opposed to no, and we won't actually send them an email. But if they haven't yet replied to us, meaning that there is no emails inside our inbox from them, then what will happen is we will send them an email using this HTTP request node, which will basically reply to the thread that we sent them the previous email on. So if we double check the email that we sent to Jitesh, you can see that now we have another email that says, hey Jitesh, just pushing this back up your inbox in case you missed it. Look forward to hearing from you. And oops, in this case, I actually sent it to Jitesh, so maybe I should fix that. And then if we click the 3 dots, you can see that we have kind regards Kia, and click here to unsubscribe at the bottom so they can unsubscribe if they don't want to hear from us. And now just before we send off the 3rd email, I want to quickly demo what would happen if you were to reply to one of those emails. Now in practice, what would happen is if Jitesh were to actually reply to this email over here, then in email number 3, we would actually check to see if there's been a reply from his email address to our email address, and then we will filter it out if there has been a reply, and we wouldn't actually send the email to him. But in this case, as I said, because we don't actually want to have to wait for Jitesh to send us a reply and it's just a demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change one of the email addresses to my own email address to kirgasem.dev@gmail.com. so that it will trigger the fact that there has been a previous conversation between the two email addresses, and so the next email wouldn't actually be sent. So it will count as a reply. So now I've changed this email over here. Going back here, what should happen is in the middle flow for kia@chemexa.ai, it should check to see if I have sent them an email before from kirgasem.dev@gmail.com. And because I have, it will trigger that I have replied, and so it wouldn't actually send off the email to them anymore. So let's test that out. Let's run workflow number 3 or email number 3 for time zone number 2. And I hope I'm not getting you guys confused with all the 1, 2, 3s, but it's a pretty difficult workflow or automation to actually demo because there's so much going on. As you can see, what actually happened is the reply was triggered as yes, and when it came here, it actually went and sent a message to the Google Sheet saying change the reply to yes, and so an email wasn't actually sent. But for the other email, because there wasn't a reply yet, what actually happened is it didn't trigger as replied, and it went on and actually sent email number 3 and updated inside the sheet as well. So coming back here, you can see that replied changed to yes for the email that we fabricated so we could actually trigger that reply. And then for the other one, the email was actually sent and reply stayed at no. So as you can see, this is email number 3 to Jitesh saying, hey Jitesh, I was thinking about Agency Easy again and how you're likely looking to grow your customer base without proportionately increasing your team's workload. And then it goes on to tell them a bunch of things, and then it will try and book them into my calendar by providing my calendar link with a call to action. And then it'll still have the click here to unsubscribe button at the bottom. Now, with that being said, as you guys saw, we were able to send out 3 emails in sequence with a 2-day delay between them, with email number 1 and email number 3 being completely new emails, and email number 2 being a reply to the first email to follow up and say, hey, just pushing this back up in your inbox. Let me know if you're interested. But with that being said, let's go through the workflow, and I'm going to show you guys exactly what's going on in every single node. So coming back to workflow number 1, let's see exactly what's going on under the hood. So this automation obviously has a trigger, and the trigger for this automation is going to be a schedule trigger because you would want the email preparation to happen periodically right before your actual email campaigns are sent out. So in the previous email, if we were going to send out emails Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 2 days apart, then you'd probably want your email preparation to happen the day before. So ideally, you'd have the schedule trigger sometime on Sunday. So this will prepare all the emails that will feed into Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now to change that, all you have to do is click over here, and then you can change this expression that defines exactly what day, what time you want for the automation to run. So in this instance, what we have is 11 p.m. on Sundays. But if you guys do want to change this, you can change the 23 to whatever number, like for example, 09, which is 9 a.m., or 14, which is 2 p.m. on Sunday, or let's say Saturday, if Saturday works better for you guys. Now, if you guys are going to be changing the schedule trigger, just make sure to go and click on the 3 buttons at the top here, click on settings, and change the time zone to match your own time zone. So if you guys are in the US, you'd search up, for example, New York, or if you guys are in London, you'd search up London, or whatever time zone you're in, you basically change it up here so you make sure that the automation is actually running when you intend for it to run. So in this case, we're in Australia, so we'll leave that. And then after that, once the automation actually runs, the Google Sheets node would actually pull in all the leads from the Google Sheet, which has the analyze section as a no. So if we go back to the Google Sheet, coming back here, you can see that we have this column over here that says analyzed. Now, if the rows or the leads actually haven't run through this first automation yet, what happens is the value for them will be no, which was defined inside the actual Lead Gen Joe or lead scraping workflow for Lead Gen Joe. But once they actually are analyzed, at the very end, what we're doing is we're changing the, let me bring it up, we're changing the analyze section back to yes. So then next time, it wouldn't call in the people that have been analyzed. It will go on from the people that actually haven't been fed into the workflow yet. So in this case, the Google Sheet node gets populated with all of the leads that should be analyzed. Now, I've put a limiter of 3, so I could demo it for you guys quickly, but you'd obviously remove this limiter in practice, and that will mean that all 341 people would be sent off to the next node to be analyzed. Now, the research component of this workflow has 2 different parts. The first one is a scrape profiles plus post part from Relevance AI. So this is actually using a Relevance AI tool to scrape all the information from a person's LinkedIn profile, like their about section, city, company description, education, experiences, literally everything about them, their company, their education, their experiences, their about us section, anything on their LinkedIn is being scraped. And even at the very end, if I scroll to the bottom here, you can see that we're also trying to scrape the last 30 days of posts that they've made on LinkedIn. Now, in this case, this last person didn't actually have any posts, but if they do have posts, then it would come at the very bottom here. If we take a look at this research report that was emailed to me using Lead Gen Joe, as you can see at the very bottom, we have a section called Recent LinkedIn Posts, which is the last 30 days of LinkedIn posts, and it will basically just scrape the information about that LinkedIn post, including what date it was posted on and the actual text for that LinkedIn post. Now, to set this up is very simple. What you guys want to do is make yourselves a free Relevance AI account, and then once you're inside Relevance AI, you want to click on the burger menu at the top left, and then you want to choose Tools. And then once you're inside Tools, you want to click on Import, and you want to import the tool that I give you access to inside my free Skool community. So then once you import the tool, you should see something like LinkedIn Research Tool. You want to click on it, and then you want to go to Use, and then you want to go to API, and all you want to do is you want to connect the actual workflow in n8n or the HTTP request node in n8n directly to your Relevance AI tool. And doing this is extremely simple. All you want to do is click on Copy, and then go back here. You want to paste that URL instead of the URL that I've got here. And then you want to go back. You want to click on Generate API Key, copy the API key, come back here and replace it with this API key that I've got underneath authorization in the query parameters. And then coming down to the body, you can see that the body includes two parameters. The first one is LinkedIn URL, which actually includes the LinkedIn URL that you're trying to scrape. And the second one is last X days of post. So last X days being 30 means we're looking at the last 30 days of post. If you guys wanted to make it the last 180 days or 6 months, you can change that. Or if you guys wanted to keep it as 30, you could just leave it as it is. And then once you've set that up, that's all you need to set up. It's going to scrape all the information about that prospect's LinkedIn URL and bring it up in the right-hand side here. And then moving on, what we have in the next research node is we're using Perplexity to do online research about that person from all of the publicly available resources, including their website. So in this case, we're using the model Sonar. The system message we defined is saying you're a researcher in a business development team. Your job is to find as much research as you can about a company. You must ensure it's for the correct company and it's highly accurate. Then I've actually just given it the actual name of the company and also the URL for the website of that company. So Perplexity knows with high conviction who this person that it's meant to be researching or who this company that it's meant to be researching actually is. And to connect yourself to Perplexity, it's also very simple. All you guys have to do is open up your Perplexity account. And then inside Perplexity, you want to click on the settings button. And then you want to go to API and you want to just set up a payment for yourself. And then once you set up payment, you will have a API key there. You want to copy that API key. You want to come back here, and then you want to connect yourself to Perplexity with a header authorization, which would look something like this. Authorization, and then bearer space, chuck in the API key you get from Perplexity. So authorization, and then for the value, it's bearer space, your API key. Now you guys can set it up like I've set it up with the generic authentication authorization types, or you can just set it up with headers exactly how I've set it up here to keep it simple for yourself. So once you've connected yourself to Perplexity, what you're going to be getting back is, as I said, the research about that person's company from all the publicly available resources online. Now, as I said, I've given you guys access to this Trustpilot reviews node as well, which you can add for additional research. And basically what this Trustpilot reviews node does is that it will look to find the most recent 5, 1, 2, or 3-star reviews that that company has received on Trustpilot. And by basically identifying these negative reviews, you can use that to identify those pain points, and you can actually mention that inside the email to say, hey, I saw that you guys got this negative review because of this reason, or this negative review because of this reason, and this is how we can help you to avoid this moving forward. Now, just for simplicity's sake, I've actually kept it out, but if you guys want to add it in, it's also very simple to add it in. You just pull it up and you would place it right between the two over here. And then you just want to make sure that you're actually feeding it into the analysis node over here as well. So if you guys want to know how to set up the Trustpilot reviews node, I would recommend watching the video in the description down below about Lead Gen Joe, because inside Lead Gen Joe's video, I actually take you guys through exactly how to set up the Trustpilot reviews node. And honestly, it's not that hard at all. So go to the link in the description down below and skip to the part where I show you guys the Trustpilot reviews node. It will take you 1 or 2 minutes to find. So moving forward, once we've done the research, what we want to do is we want to grab that research and analyze it to extract insights that we can then use to create the 3 emails. So to do this, what we've done is we've used a OpenAI node that's connected to OpenRouter. You guys don't have to connect this to OpenRouter. If you want, you can just connect it to OpenAI directly. All you'd have to do is go to OpenAI Playground and grab an API key and then come back here and pop it in and you'd be connected. I'm using O1 Mini for this use case, but it's really up to you guys what LLM you want to use. But I probably would recommend using a reasoning model so the model would actually think through the data to identify those insights through reasoning. So with that being said, let's take a look at the prompt. It says you are part of the cold email team at Chemexa. So I basically just told it who it is. And then it says Chemexa offers the following services. So this is the actual services that I offer. Number 1, business automation. Number 2, marketing automation. And number 3, automation consulting. And then it says, this is what your task is. Your job is to analyze the research found on a prospect in preparation for a cold email. For each prospect, you must find the following. So then I've basically just told it what sort of analysis it needs to do. The first analysis here is to identify personalization opportunities. So cold emails perform much better when personalized. You must analyze the research found on the prospect to identify the top personalization opportunities. The personalization can be one of the following. So I'm saying this is the stuff that you should be identifying. It could either be referencing the content that they've posted, which would be inside the LinkedIn last X days post. I'm saying it could be specific achievements or news related to them or their business, which would either come from Perplexity or the research node. And then the third personalization opportunity could be a compliment for the work that they've done. So if they've said something on LinkedIn like, I am, this crazy smart entrepreneur that's achieved so much, you can basically grab that and compliment them on that inside the email, and that within itself is a personalization. Or the fourth one could be a unique aspect of their professional background. So if you think that you know any better personalization opportunities, you just want to basically just add it at the bottom over here. And then in the prompt, we just say the references must be highly specific. That couldn't be mass generated because we want to achieve the one-to-one status. And then I say that adding each reference to the cold email should feel like a one-to-one communication, to make the reader feel like, whoa, this is for me once they're actually reading the emails. So you want the person to actually say, okay, this guy actually knows who I am, and they took time out of their day to make this email personalized to me to actually solve my problems and help me. And then at the bottom, I just say, if you can't find any good personalization opportunities, then leave this blank, because the worst thing that you want is to allow the AI to hallucinate and make up random things. And then it might reach out to someone saying, hey, I know you won the fishing competition 4 years ago. Congratulations. And that's going to be really awkward. So you want to make sure to minimize the hallucination as much as you can by keeping this part of the prompt in there. So then the second thing that we want to analyze is the pain points and the identification of solutions for those pain points. So I say analyze the research to identify the prospect's biggest pain points, take into consideration their role, their company details, and all other research to predict what their biggest bottlenecks are. Then think of these pain points in terms of Chemexa services. Which ones can we solve? List the 2 biggest pain points that we can help with and define the actionable solution. Make sure it's actionable that we can offer them. So basically just figure out what pain points they have, figure out what are the 2 biggest pain points that we can solve, and then provide them an offer with an actionable solution that will actually solve that pain point for them. So turn the actionable solution into a clear and concise offer. The solutions should be specific offerings, not broad services. So instead of just saying automation, you have to define exactly what is being automated. So this part of the prompt, you guys would want to change based on your business and your use case. You want to make sure that you're identifying pain points related to your service. So you want to clearly define it here. And also if you have to add any caveat, you just want to add it into this section here. And then in the prompt, I'm just giving the AI a desired output format. I'm saying that your output should be in this report format here. So personalization, opportunity number 1, supporting evidence, opportunity number 2, supporting evidence, add more if you need. And then for the pain points and solutions, we got the first pain point, the supporting evidence, the offer for that pain point, and then the second pain point, the supporting evidence, and the offer for that pain point. And then in this section, I've just defined exactly what each of these parts mean. So where supporting evidence is where you must include specific examples and evidence from the research that support your findings. You must give enough detail in the here sections so the reader does not need to revisit the research to create a cold email. Because what we want to do is that in the next node, we don't want to have to pass on all of this research into the actual content creator or the email creator node. Because if we were passing on all of this research, the amount of tokens inside that prompt would increase significantly. And that would mean that the actual model's output would be much worse. Because generally, the smaller a prompt is, the better it will perform. So what we wanted to do is do the analysis in a separate step grab all the analysis, which is obviously going to be much smaller than the research, and pass that on to the next node to create the email from the analysis, not from the entire research. And then basically I say the opportunity should be explained in detail, so the reader has enough context to understand the opportunity. So for example, instead of saying news A, you must explain exactly what news A entitles and why it's significant. And then I've given it some rules. So I've said don't output anything else, replace the here with relevant string. If there are no clear personalization opportunities, then just replace it with null, and make sure your outputs are well thought out. And then I've given it access to the actual research. So that's the research from the Relevance AI node that's scraping LinkedIn, number one. And that's the research from the actual Perplexity node that's scraping the company profile and all the other publicly available resources on Google about that person's company. So if you guys wanted to also add Trustpilot, you would have number 3. What's going on? Not sure what happened there, but you would add number 3 at the bottom over here to just give it access to the Trustpilot reviews as well. So as you can see, this creates an output like this. We have personalization opportunity, supporting evidence, and then the second opportunity should be somewhere here, opportunity, and then we have supporting evidence. And then for the pain points, we have the same sort of deal as what we defined inside the format, supporting evidence. And we also have the actual offer to solve that pain point for the 2 pain points that we've identified. And then once the analysis is complete, what we're doing is we're creating the 3 emails from the insights that were extracted from the analysis node. So to do this, I've also used an OpenAI node, but this time I'm using OpenRouter and I've connected myself to Claude 3.7 Sonnet because generally Claude 3.7 Sonnet does really well when it comes to copywriting tasks. And in this instance, because writing an email technically is copywriting, it actually performs much better than OpenAI. So I would recommend you guys also connect yourself to Claude 3.7 Sonnet, but just keep in mind that Claude 3.7 Sonnet is much more expensive than OpenAI O1 Mini. So it's going to cost you guys a little bit more to run this model, but it will pay off because the emails that it will send would actually be slightly better. Now, if you guys are on a massive budget, what you guys can do, you can click this and you can choose Gemini 2.5 Pro, the experimental one that's currently free. So Gemini 2.5 Pro experimental from the 25th of March. That one is absolutely amazing, but sometimes it has some issues in terms of giving back errors, and I think it has rate limits, so it wouldn't be good in production just yet, but it's an amazing model that you guys can use for free for now. Now, if you guys don't know how to connect Claude 3.7 Sonnet to n8n via OpenRouter, I recently made a video that goes through exactly this, that tells you how you can connect literally any LLM to n8n via OpenRouter, and it's only 5 minutes long. So I'm going to be putting the link for that one in the description down below, so feel free to watch that if you guys get stuck here. But otherwise, it's very simple and very easy to do, so I'll leave that up to you guys. So now coming back to the email node, let's take a closer look at the actual prompt itself. So the prompt says you are part of the cold email team for Chemexa. So again, I've basically just told it who it is and what its role is, which is an AI automation agency offering process automation, marketing automation, and automation consulting to businesses around the world. Your job is to create 3 emails given the following info about a new cold lead. Input number 1 is a portion of the research from before. Input number 2 is the analysis section or the insights we extracted from that research in the previous node. And then info number 3 is the actual tactic you should use to create the 3 emails. Coming over here, we can see that it says your job is to create a cold email sequence of 3 emails, which will be sent 2 days apart. The tactic for each email should closely follow the instructions below, whilst the content of each email must follow the research and analysis. Now in the tactics section, I've basically just told the AI exactly what strategies it should use for each of the 3 emails. And honestly, for the tactics, I try to keep it simple, but also still give you guys a prompt that's going to give you a pretty good cold email. But when it comes to sending cold emails, there's like 1,000 different strategies and 1,000 different ways you can send out those cold emails. And depending on the strategy that you guys have, you would probably want to come down here and change the actual tactic. But the one that I've given you is a pretty good one and a pretty basic one as well. And honestly, for the sake of this video, I didn't want to make it 10 hours long and make it a marketing 101 tutorial where I take you guys through different cold email tactics and how you guys can send converting cold emails and that sort of stuff. But if you guys are interested in me walking you guys through different cold email marketing strategies, then put a comment down below and I'll make a dedicated video on that soon. So let's take a look at the tactic that we've defined over here. We've basically defined it by the email itself. So as you guys can see, that's for email number 1. And then we have the tactic for email number 3. And then we have the tactic for email number 2. And there's a good reason for that sort of mix up in the ordering as well. So let's quickly go through it and understand exactly what's going on. So I say first for the subject line of email number 1, the subject line should be a maximum of 4 words. It's generally consensus that it should be shorter. The shorter the subject line, the better. Include the prospect's name or company name, choose based on context when possible without sounding unnatural. So basically what I'm just saying is it's better to have the actual person's name or their company name inside the subject line. But if it feels or sounds unnatural, then you don't have to. So it's kind of giving the AI autonomy to decide whether it should include it or not. But generally, it's known that if you do include personalization inside the subject line or make the subject line personalized, then that increases the open rate. And then I say for the subject line, you should never include spam trigger words. So there's certain trigger words like free, guarantee, no obligation, price, 100%, sale. And once these trigger words are inside a subject line, generally big email providers like Gmail and Outlook, they identify that email as a spam and they send it directly to the spam folder. So that guy wouldn't even receive the email inside their actual inbox. So what we're trying to do over here is avoid having these sort of spammy words inside the subject line to increase our deliverability. And then I say you shouldn't use any excessive punctuation because that's also pretty spammy when it comes to email deliverability. And then in the fourth point, I say that the subject line should create curiosity without sounding too spammy or like we're trying to sell them anything. The idea here is like you don't want to send someone an email saying, hey, you just won $10 billion because they're going to know it's spam and they're not going to open it. And you also don't want to email them saying, hey, please buy my t-shirts because it's going to sound too salesy and they're also not going to open it. What you want to do is you want to send them a subject line that's going to create curiosity in them so they're like, oh shit, like maybe I should actually open that. That's intriguing. That's interesting. So that's the subject line. And then for the body, it says this is the structure of the email body. It should follow this structure very closely. First, we're going to have a hook. So the first 2 or 3 sentences of the email is a hook. The hook should be the personalization part of the email, capturing the prospect's attention so they don't scroll. So if we take a look at the cold email we sent to Chris, we can see that the first sentence says, your 15-year entrepreneurial journey across tech software verticals caught my attention on LinkedIn. Particularly impressive is how ShopStyle leverages behavioral psychology for consumer insights. As you can see, this first section here is meant to basically be the personalized section or the hook that's going to grab their attention because I'm referring to something that's very unique to them. I'm saying you have a 15-year entrepreneurial journey across tech software verticals, and I found that on LinkedIn. So they're going to be like, oh shit, this person saw my LinkedIn, they know who I am. And then the AI kind of takes that a bit further and says, it's particularly impressive how ShopStyle leverages behavioral psychology for consumer insights. The idea of this hook section here is to do exactly that. So after we've got the hook sorted, the second section of the email should be about their pain points. After the hook, you must outline a pain point that was analyzed about the prospect. This shouldn't sound too salesy, should be directly related to the business, and it should be more to capture the reader's attention, not sell them a solution. And if we come back over here, you can see that it says, I've noticed that small innovative teams like yours at Boost Marketing often struggle with streamlining internal processes, especially when balancing client work with your own business development. So over here, I've kind of mentioned that there is a pain point, but it doesn't directly say, this is your pain point, come and buy from me, right? It's basically trying to point at that pain point without sounding too salesy yet. And then after the pain point in the email, we want to have a call to action, which says, say you've been working on solving that problem and would love to share your insights over a quick 15-minute call on the variable. And the variable would basically always refer to 2 days from now. So if I scroll down here, it says the variable equates to Thursday because today is Tuesday. Now, if today was Wednesday, it would be Friday. If today was Thursday, it would be Saturday, and so on and so forth. And I also say that you should have a clear next step for them to clearly define what that call to action actually is. And then, so coming back here, it says, I've been working on solutions that could help your 2 to 10 person team reduce manual tasks by up to 40%. Would you be open to a quick 15-minute chat on Thursday to share some insights? Now, to be honest, if I wanted to send out this cold email campaign, I'd probably come back and say, don't make up random statistics, because if I'm telling you I've reduced it for 40%, I'd better have actually reduced it, or else it's going to be a pretty awkward conversation. So you would probably want to make the prompt itself a little bit more tight-knit so that it's not actually lying or sounding too salesy. And you can even give it access to case studies and how you've actually helped people as well, so you can use those real statistics, not make up fake statistics. And then for the guidelines, I say that the email body should be short paragraphs, 1 or 2 sentences each, should be conversational in tone, should have a 6th grade reading level, should be you focused. So it should say a lot of you, not I or me. So it shouldn't be I did this, we did this, I am this, I'm selling this. It should be you are this is your problem, this is your solution, this is your ideal life, this is your pain points, this is why I'm impressed by you. So it should all be about you as opposed to about me, and that's what we're trying to achieve. And then it says you should avoid images, attachments, videos, stuff like that, because that's going to reduce deliverability. So you want it to be as simple as possible with no punctuations, no crazy HTML formatting. And then I just say that you shouldn't make any absurd claims. It should be believable. And then I say always start with, hey, their name. It should be concise. Never start with formal openers like hope you're doing well, because that's just wasting people's time and you don't want to waste people's time. And then be nice and inviting, and always end with kind regards, Kia. You'd probably want to add your company name there as well if you'd like, but up to you guys. And that's basically all we're telling it to do for email number 1. And then for email number 3, we're basically saying you should do the same exact thing, but now instead of opening with a really hyper-personalized sort of hook, you can act as if you've had a previous conversation with them. So the email should be following the same structure and guidelines as email number 1 with the following differences. It should mention a different pain point, obviously. The call to action should include the following Calendly link. So as you guys saw with the third email that I sent to Jitesh, at the bottom I have my Calendly link over here. And then I basically just define that you should act like you already know them from before and not necessarily go back into making a very cold sort of sales email. But as I said, it's up to you guys if you want to change this. Depending on the strategy that you're using, you can come and change this prompt. Now, to be honest, when it comes to this sort of prompts, I would really recommend you guys A/B test different strategies in different parts of the prompt. Honestly, when we did R1 as well, we didn't really get the first prompt right straight away, and we had to iterate through a lot of different prompts until eventually we found one that really worked for us. And you guys should be doing the same exact thing. So once you create one prompt, run it for a couple of days, maybe for 1 week, see how it performs, grab all the metrics like open rate, reply rate. And then once you have those metrics, then you want to change one thing or 2 things or one part of the prompt, come back, see how that performs, and then do the same thing and same thing over again until eventually you have the perfect prompt. And you can even try out different strategies completely. So you can one time send value propositions, one time send them lead magnets, one time just ask them how their day's been. Just try different things until eventually one of them works. And then for email number 2, it says this email will be in the same thread as email number 1, which as you guys saw was as a reply to email number 1 as opposed to an entirely new email. It's considered as a follow-up email to the previous email. It should be a close variant of the email below. Just pushing this back up your inbox in case you missed it. Look forward to hearing from you. Kind regards, Kia. So I basically just told it exactly what the email number 2 should be because it's just a follow-up email. But if you guys want to allow the AI to have more freedom there as well, you guys can adjust that as you'd like. And then at the very end, I've just given it some rules saying this is some other things you should consider. Your goal is to create an engaging email, which will get us a reply. Choose the best pain points and personalization opportunities from the analysis to achieve the objective. You must closely follow the guidelines provided for each email. Never come across as condescending or rude when mentioning their pain points. It's important. You don't want to say, this is your pain point, you suck. You want to kind of be nice about it. And then when using personalization opportunities from the analysis, always mention where the info was found, usually online or on LinkedIn, because it's kind of creepy if you send someone an email and say, I know your social security number. They'll be like, shit, how does this person know my social security number? So you want to kind of say where you found it so you don't look like a creep. So I've also defined that here inside the prompt. And then at the bottom, I've defined the output format. So the output format for this one should be in the JSON formatting, so we can put it inside the Google Sheet. And I've just given it some specific rules. And I've said that this is a new task or a new prospect has just been created or a new lead. I give it access to the following research points, just their first name and their company name. And I tell it to ignore any legal suffixes like LLC or proprietary limited. And then I give it access to the actual analysis. And with that information, which basically looks like this, once all the data has been pulled in, the AI will be able to create those 3 emails. So once those emails have been created, it gets put into this fields node, which basically just converts it from a string sort of JSON format to an actual JSON format. So we'd have email number 1 subject body, and then we'll have email number 2 body, and then email number 3 subject body as well. I don't know why my n8n is glitching like this. I don't know if it's a bug, but it just jumps. So n8n, please fix that. And then moving forward, once that comes into this JSON formatting, it's being merged back with the initial data. So what we'd have here is would basically have the emails, email number 1, 2, 3, merged with all the other information about that person that we found from the Google Sheet. And then that information is being sent on to a bunch of code, which is very simply grabbing the country from that lead. And it's saying, okay, well, which time zone did this country fit in? So basically what I've defined is 3 time zones. We've got time zone number 1, time zone number 2, and time zone number 3. Time zone number 1 seems to be US and Canada. So we got basically America. And then time zone number 2 is all of the European countries. So London, I don't know, Bosnia, Croatia, Czech, all those countries. And then time zone number 3 is, I believe, Australia and New Zealand. So I basically just divided countries based off the approximate time zones considering each other. Like all of European countries would have very similar time zones. US, Canada, the countries up there would have similar time zones, and Australia, New Zealand, the countries that are all the way down here would also have similar time zones as well. So over here in the code, what we're basically doing is we're basically just defining these countries, and we're looping over each item, and depending on the country, we're putting it inside a different time zone. Then once we have the time zone set up, we're basically just updating the time zone parameter inside the actual data to reflect that time zone. And then in the next node, what we're doing is we've basically just defined a bit of code that is going to apply a sender email to each lead. So we basically know which email address we should send it from. So as I said before, we have 3 email addresses. Let's say email address A, email address B, and email address C. We want to send about 50 emails per email address. And the idea of this code node here is for each item that comes, let's say item number 1, item number 2, and item number 3, each of these items are going to be rotated or sequentially like placed inside each of the actual sender email. So kind of to explain it a bit better, basically item number 1 would get A, item number 2 would get B, item number 3 would get C, and then if we had item number 4, 5, 6, item number 4 would then again get A, item number 5 would get B, and then item number 6 would get C. And by doing this, what we're basically doing is we're dividing the total number of items by the 3 sender emails, so it's distributed proportionately between the 3. So let's say if we have, as I said, 150 items over here, we're going to be having 50 items with each sender email. So each of those email addresses are going to be sending emails to 50 of those 150. So it just distributes it evenly. What I have to do is inside here, just change the actual email address with your email addresses. So it applies the email addresses correctly. What did I change? There we go. And then leave the rest of the code. You don't have to touch anything. And actually back here in the time zones as well, what you want to do is just basically update the data regarding the time zone. So you can just copy this, put it inside ChatGPT and say, hey, this is what this code is actually doing right now. Can you change the time zones to the time zones that I want, and also change the countries and not change anything else? And ChatGPT should be more than capable of actually fixing that for you. Now in the next code node, we're just defining a random token for opting out. So basically what I've said is let's choose a 6-digit token. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And for each of these, it could be any number from 0 to 9. So the combination of that is obviously like a lot of different potential numbers. And then what we'll do is we'll create a random token for each item. And then once we've created that random token, we're storing it inside the token parameter, which is down here. So as you can see, token, it's not the same as this token parameter. It's this one over here. So token, this token here. And then once that token is created and we have the sender email address, we have the time zones, we have the research, we have the email, we have everything prepared. We're just uploading everything to the actual Google Sheets node. So in this instance, what we're doing is we're saying find the matching row inside the Google Sheets, the data that we have here on the left by the LinkedIn URL. And then once you find it, update the research report to be this, email body for email number 1 to be this, email number 1 subject to be this, email number 2 body, email number 3 body. So basically just all of the little bits and pieces of information that we created from the previous nodes, we're uploading into the Google Sheets node, and we're setting the email number 1, 2, 3 sent to be no, which will allow us to send emails in the next workflow. And the token is being uploaded here, and opted out is being set as no as a default. So what that would create is this part over here to the right. So for this workflow as well, obviously we're going to have a schedule trigger node, and the schedule trigger node is going to be running every Monday at 11 a.m. So basically every Monday at 11 a.m. is when we want to send the first email to time zone number 2. And obviously you want that 11 a.m. to reflect 11 a.m. for that time zone's time. So what you guys want to do there is, depending on your time zone, click on the 3 buttons here, and then click on settings, and then go to time zone and choose the time zone that's relevant to the time zone that you have for this specific batch of leads. So if you guys have the second time zone as, let's say, Africa, you'd go here and you'd find a time zone related to Africa. Or if it's the Middle East, you do the same thing there. Or if it's, let's say, London, you'd keep it as it is. And then with that being said, 11 a.m. Monday would actually only reflect 11 a.m. Monday in that specific time zone's time. So if I compare that to email number 1 for time zone 1, which is basically the same exact workflow for time zone number 1, the schedule trigger is still showing 11 a.m. on Monday, but this time the time zone is America, New York. And to change that, I've just clicked on the 3 buttons there, and I've changed the time zone inside the settings to match the time zone that's related to this specific batch of leads. And then once the automation triggers, it goes inside a Google Sheets node. And inside the Google Sheets node, as I showed you guys before, what we're doing was we're trying to extract information about the leads that we're trying to email in this specific batch. And the conditions that we've defined is that email number one has to not have been sent to them. So the parameter for email number one should be no, which is what we set in the previous workflow, and that the actual time zone should be related to the time zone for that specific workflow. So in this instance, we have time zone 2. So this one over here says time zone T2. And then in this instance, it says time zone T1 up here. So inside the Google Sheet node, we also have time zone T1. So once that extracts the actual leads that need to be emailed right now for this specific time zone, it will send those items over to a switch, which basically is just like an if statement that will send data in different directions depending on a certain condition. And the condition that we've defined here is the actual sender email. So if the sender email is equivalent to the first email, send them up. If it's equivalent to the second email we're using, send them forward. And if it's equivalent to the third email we're using, send them downwards. So you would basically just replace these 3 emails with the email addresses that you're going to be using. So whatever that's going to be, you'd want to change it there. And then once it decides to go in whichever direction, we have the same thing replicated 3 times. And each time it's basically just for one of those email addresses. So the only thing that's different between these 3 routes is that the Gmail node over here is connected to a different account. Now, if you guys use Outlook, you want to connect it to that relevant Outlook account for that email address. If you guys use Gmail, you want to do the same thing. If you guys use any other email provider, you want to do the exact same thing. So as you can see, once the data comes in here, it basically gets looped so that it goes item by item. So item number 1 comes in, the email gets sent off, then it goes and waits for a certain amount of time, let's say 5 minutes. And by doing this, we're ensuring that we're not blasting 1,000 emails in a row from the same email address, which is going to identify your emails as spam and really hurt your email deliverability. So we're basically just defining delays. So email number 1 gets sent, 5 minutes wait, email number 2 gets sent, 5 minutes wait, email number 3 gets sent, same thing going on. And then once that wait is completed, it will go back to the loop and the second item will come down, email will be sent, it will go and wait, go back up, and the same thing for the third item and so on and so forth until eventually all of the emails have been sent. Once they've been sent, it goes up to the Google Sheets node, where inside the Google Sheet node, we're basically just updating the leads parameter that says email number 1 sent to yes, because we obviously now sent email number 1 for that person. And also we're updating the message ID, which is this ID here, which is going to allow us to reply in the same thread for the second email. Now, just to quickly show you guys what's going on in here as well. As you guys can see inside the actual Gmail node, I have hard-coded right now that I want to send all the emails to myself because I don't want to bother people when I'm doing demos. But what you guys would have is you would basically pull in this parameter over here. So it actually sends the email to that lead's email address, not to your own email address. And then for the subject, I've pulled it in from there. It's sending in HTML. And the actual email it's sending is what we've created in the previous workflow, which is currently inside the Google Sheet. And then I've added this little section here, which basically just says break, which means go 2 lines down, and add this section here, which is basically just creating the opt-out link so that they can click the button so they can opt out at any time. Now for the opt-out link, as you guys can see, it is a webhook coming to n8n with a little section at the bottom here, which is a query parameter that says tkn is equal to the token. Now, if we have a look at the actual opt-out link workflow, you can see that we have a webhook, which the production webhook URL is the webhooks /unsubscribe, which is what we had back there. And this will listen to any sort of webhook request that is sent to that specific URL. So any request that comes in gets sent to this specific URL. And then by defining that query parameter at the end, we send off that information inside that specific trigger. So we send out the actual token that was identified here. So as you can see, we have the token here, which is coming in as TKN. And then over here, we also have the actual token coming in as TKN. So then once that information comes in, we're extracting the token. Then we're checking it against Google Sheet to find the row that has the matching token and change the opted out from no to yes. And by doing this, we will now basically change this row from no to yes. So next time we want to send them an email, it will say, okay, well, they've already opted out. I'm not going to send them an email anymore. Simple as that, super easy. So that's basically all it is for email number one. And as I said, the only difference is up here, you'd connect it to the relevant email address, and down here, you'd connect it to the relevant email address as well. And then coming over to email number two for time zone 2, this workflow is slightly more advanced than the other one. And I'll tell you guys exactly why. So again, inside this one, we have a schedule trigger node. The schedule trigger node is basically just going to trigger the automation in at a specific time. And the time that we've defined here is 11 a.m. on Wednesday. So the first email we sent was 11 a.m. on Monday. Second email we're sending is 11 a.m. Wednesday. And the third one, as I said, is going to be 11 a.m. Friday. Yet again, we've defined the time zone here to be the same as time zone for T2. And to do that, we've just gone up here and we've chosen the correct time zone. So when you guys are setting up, just make sure you change the time zones and change the time you want to send it within that time zone, depending on whatever your preference is. But I find that generally 11 a.m. is a pretty good time because people have come in and they've worked a little bit and they're usually getting ready for lunch. So they check the email. So I like to send my emails around 11 a.m. But up to you guys if you want to send it at a different time. And then over here, what we're doing is we're pulling all the rows that we have to send emails to, or the leads that we have to send emails to in this instance. The actual criteria that we're defining for the leads that we're pulling is slightly different in this case. First, we're checking to see if we've sent email number one. Obviously, we should have sent email number one if we're sending email number two, so it should be yes. Email number two, however, shouldn't be sent yet because we're trying to send that now. So email number two sent should be no. Time zone should be T2. And column replied should be no because they haven't replied yet. If they have replied, but I want to send them another email. And opted out should also be no. So in the previous section, because we changed the opted out to yes, what would happen is in this instance, it wouldn't be pulled into the second email. So we wouldn't actually send them an email anymore. And then once that information comes in again, it's being sent across with an if statement based off the actual sender email. So as I said again, you change these emails to your own sender email. And then it's going up, middle, or bottom. And the only difference between the three sort of routes that it goes is only in the actual email addresses that's being used. So anything that says Gmail and this HTTP request node here later as well, you want to change it to connect to that specific email address. Same as the other workflow, what's basically happening is once the email is coming in, it's going through a loop where it's getting, let's say, 10 items and it's sending them across one by one. So the first lead comes down. We are checking the first lead for replies. And in order to check the first lead for replies, what we're actually doing is we're just saying, go through my Gmail and get all of the emails that has been sent from that person to me. So the sender being that email address, check to see if there is any emails from them or not. Now the limit I've defined is 3, but realistically this should be 1. There's no need to have 3. Basically that would come out as either a bunch of information because it did identify a reply, or it would come out as no information because there was no reply whatsoever. So if we open up maybe this one here, let's see if that's got the data. There we go. So in this instance, as you can see, there was a empty array with no items inside it, or basically an object that had nothing inside it, meaning that the Gmail node wasn't actually able to find any emails. So in this instance, it came back as empty. And then once it came back as empty, that goes inside a field which says if it is empty, then replied should be no. And if it is full, then replied should be yes. So if this is empty, turn the replied parameter to no. If this is full, turn replied parameter to yes. So you just basically leave it as it is. You don't have to change it whatsoever. And then basically once that information comes up, it gets combined with the initial info about that person, which is this one over here. So we've got everything there. And then at the bottom, we should also have now that replied is equal to no. And then in the next node, what we're doing is we're defining an if statement. If replied is equal to yes, we obviously don't want to send them an email anymore. It goes down to true and it basically just skips the actual sending of that email. But if replied is equal to no, meaning that replied is equal to yes is false, it continues on by sending them an email. So in this instance, let's say, for example, if replied was equal to yes, meaning that they did reply, what would happen is over here would find them based off their LinkedIn URL inside the Google Sheet, and we'll just change that replied parameter from no to yes, so that next time it basically says yes over here, so we wouldn't actually send the third email for them. And if that was the case, basically I'll quickly just write what would happen. It would come down here, up here, it would come here, it would go down, it would come down here, then it would come back up and it will skip that email altogether. And then it will go to the next email, it will try the same thing. And then this time, if they haven't actually replied to us yet, it will go forward. So with the emails that haven't had a reply yet, what will happen is we're trying to send them an email in the same thread as the previous email. So as you can see, the email that we sent to Jitesh is actually in the same thread as the previous email. So we're not sending them the whole new email altogether because it's only a follow-up email. And in this instance, I messed up because I actually sent it to Jitesh, which I actually wasn't meant to, but I'll go through exactly why that happened. And if you have a look over here as well, we have the same sort of structure. So kind regards Kia with the click here to unsubscribe, and it just basically has the follow-up email. Now, there was a problem that I was having that was super annoying, and it didn't allow me to use the native integration with Gmail to just pull a Gmail node like I did for email number 1 and email number 3's workflow. And the reason for that is inside the actual Gmail node, when you try to reply to the same sort of thread, it doesn't allow you to only send that email to the recipient. So let's say if your email address is email A and you're trying to send an email to email B, and that's the first email you sent, in the second email, if you say, okay, this is the email I sent with the message ID and I want to send in the same thread, what will happen is it will not only tag email B in there, but it will also send it to yourself as well, which basically just means that inside the recipient section, you've sent it to yourself and you've also sent it to them, which kind of looks unprofessional and would be very annoying because you'd receive heaps of emails from yourself. So to overcome this, what we actually had to do was create a HTTP request node that would do the same thing as a standard Gmail node, but it would give us more flexibility so we could actually define who we want to send that email to, so it doesn't also send it to ourselves again. Now, I've already done that for you guys, so you don't have to go through the headache that I did, because the problem is the Gmail HTTP request node wants you to actually send the body of the email with an encoding, not as actual like text in JSON formatting. So it's kind of annoying because you have to grab all the information that you want to send through inside the body of that email, like what the message ID for that thread is, who you want to send it to, which email you want to send it from, what the actual email body is. And you have to grab that information and turn it into this encoded sort of base 64 format, which looks like gibberish. And then you have to pass that gibberish through to Gmail for it to actually do what you're trying to do. I've already done that. You guys don't have to worry about that at all. But if you do want to change anything inside the actual email, you want to just come back here and change it inside the section that defines what sort of input parameters we're giving to the actual email. And this section over here that kind of defines the logic for it. I would recommend if you guys don't know how to code, just put it in ChatGPT and tell it what you want to change, and ChatGPT will be able to fix that for you. But honestly, it's a pretty big headache, so I'd recommend keeping it as it is. Then in the HTTP request node, all we had to do is we had to define the actual URL for Gmail, and we've connected ourselves to Gmail the same way that we would with a normal Gmail node, just using our actual credential that we defined before. So you guys can literally just click on Gmail OAuth 2 API and then choose your credential. And just by doing that, you're connected. You don't have to do the whole, OAuth 2 and access token and that sort of stuff, which is also a headache. So that's really good. And then in terms of the body parameters, you've just imported that gibberish as raw. And then for thread ID, you also have to define it separately inside the body and actually give the thread ID. So honestly, I would recommend not changing this whatsoever, just leaving it as it is. But if you have to, if you're using Outlook or something, then hopefully it doesn't need you to do base 64 encoding. So we'll see how you go with that. And then after that, we're basically just defining the same exact thing. So we're waiting for a couple of minutes and we're coming back up here and we're looping again and we're doing it again and again. And then eventually we're going up inside the Google Sheet node, finding the lead by their LinkedIn URL, and we're actually just changing the email number to sent from no to yes, so it doesn't send them another email the next time we run this workflow. And as you can see, that's reflected over here with these two as yes. Now coming into our final workflow number 3. So this workflow also looks pretty similar to workflow number 2, with the slight difference that instead of sending the emails through to the HTTP request node with the actual base 64 encoding, what we're doing is we're just using a Gmail node. So same exact thing is happening. This one's also got a schedule trigger. The schedule trigger is for 11 a.m. on Friday, and the time zone we've defined up here. So feel free to change that for your different workflows. Inside the Google Sheet node, we're basically just saying email 1 should be sent, email 2 should be sent, email 3 should not be sent, time zone should be time zone number 2, replied should be no, and opted out should also be no. And then that's coming in over here, and based on the condition of which sender email is being used, it's being sent up, middle, or bottom. And the only difference between them, again, is just the actual email we've logged into from the Gmail nodes. Coming into the actual workflow, as you guys can see, it's the same sort of loop is happening. Loop's coming down, checking if someone replied, coming back up, and then going here. And if they've replied, it goes to Google Sheet and skips the actual email. If they haven't replied, it goes down to Gmail, and it waits until it comes to send the next actual email. In the Gmail node as well, very similar to what we had for email number 1, we're defining who we want to send it to. So change this with the email address. You want to log into your relevant email address. And you also want to define the email type to be HTML, pull in the email body, have break, and define the actual URL of the unsubscribe link so people can click it to unsubscribe at any point in time. Now, with that being said, when you guys are setting this up, all you guys have to do is basically just replicate these workflows for the different time zones. So for example, as I said, if you guys have 3 time zones, T1, T2, and T3, you want to have email number 1, email number 2, email number 3 for each of them, and just make sure that the difference between the email number 1 in this time zone and email number 1 in this time zone is the actual time zone that you've defined up here. And then you want to just log into all your relevant email addresses in each of the sections. And realistically, that's all you really have to do. The only other thing that you should probably do is just change the prompts. And by changing the prompts inside the actual email creation workflow, which is the first workflow that we did to research, analyze, and create the emails, you guys would basically have the email strategy how you'd want it to be, and it would also make sense for your business. Now, I know that was a super long tutorial, but if you guys have actually stuck until the end, give yourselves a pat on the back. You're incredible. You're going to do absolutely amazing in the automation space. Now, as always, if you guys found this video valuable, I would really appreciate it if you guys like and subscribe and let me know in the comments down below. It really helps motivate me to make more and more of these videos for you guys. Anyways, I appreciate all of you guys. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.